So here we are again, the world of Hyrule from the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, and we are here to bust some myths. Because in the previous video, loads of people in the comment section gave suggestions for stuff I could test. For example, you can't win the chest minigame without the Lens of Truth, the skull mask makes you invisible to Keese, the mirror shield can deflect lasers, and the Hylian shield can be broken. But which ones are true, and which ones are false? Well, let's find out. Number 20. In the previous video, we used some clever tricks to spawn a giant fairy, a being that you rarely see in the game. And unlike a normal fairy, these ones also fill your magic meter, which is pretty handy. But after seeing this, Lise Ham said, "I'm pretty sure that those can't be caught in a bottle." Now after reading this, I started thinking, had I ever done that or even tried to do that before? Well, as far as I could remember, no. So I attempted it. First, I emptied my bottle and spawned in a giant fairy using the technique that we covered in the previous video. And then, I tried to imprison it. But each time I swung my bottle, nothing really happened. I couldn't capture it. So by the looks of it, Lise Ham was right. This doesn't work. Maybe because this fairy is too big to fit in a bottle? However, as far as I know, Link doesn't care about ethics anyways when trapping these beings in a bottle. So who knows why this is impossible. Number 19. After freeing the carpenters from the evil Gerudo, you're allowed to run around in their fortress without getting into trouble. And most people will explore the place at this point, because there's no need to hide after all. Now last time I was told to check out this big cauldron here, because it had some sort of secret prize. But now someone has made an even crazier claim. Wicked said that if you jumped into it and swiped your bottle through it, you would get a potion from it. Now when I read this, it instantly captured my attention, and I just had to try it. So I traveled there and jumped into this pot right away. But when I attempted to fill my bottle, nothing happened. It just didn't work. So I got out of it because I almost died as well. So yeah, Wicked, this isn't true whatsoever. Which is disappointing because it would have been great to get free potions here. Number 18. We've all seen a game crash before. Sometimes it can be fun because you didn't expect it and it looks crazy, while other times it is terrible because you forgot to save and lost loads of progress. But most of us rarely try to make a game crash on purpose. But today, we will be doing exactly that. Because according to Ebony, it is quite simple to do. All you need is an adult Dodongo and some bomb chews. The only thing you do is feed this dinosaur one of these bombs, and then it will crash. So I went into the Dodongo cavern, found one, and tried to feed it a bomb chew. When I did this, not much happened. So I thought to myself, this was another fake claim. But then, the magic happened. The game clearly soft-locked, and to be honest, I have no idea at all why it did this. But I had to try this again to be sure. So I went back and did it again. And by the looks of it, the timing is a bit tricky, because the bomb chew needs to hit him just as he starts to inhale. If you do that, it will 100% crash. So what Ebony said is true, but yeah, it isn't really useful. And the tip of saving before attempting to do this is certainly a good one. Number 17. Cucos are vindictive sons of hens. If you mess with them by hitting one, they will come after you with intent to kill. But is there a way to survive one of their attacks aside from fleeing by entering a new area or a building? Well, Erin had a fun tip to become immune, and you just need Epona, because when you're on top of her, the Cucos can't hurt you. So I went to Lon Lon Ranch to piss off some chickens to see what would happen as soon as they come for me. And as you can see, these Cucos aren't that smart, because they go too low and hit Epona's legs. But she doesn't care, and meanwhile Link is completely fine. Now as soon as I got off, I was screwed and got hit multiple times. But as soon as I get back on Epona, I am fine again. So yeah, this is the perfect way to survive one of the deadliest creatures seen in the Zelda universe, without much effort as well. Number 16. In the previous myth-busting video, I complained for a hot second about the combat scene in Ocarina of Time, because while it is amazing and revolutionized the world of 3D games by introducing things like Z-targeting, it wasn't perfect. You often had to wait for an opening, which is something later games got rid of mostly. For example, in the Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, it's seen a lot less, but according to folks in the comment section, items like the Deku nuts can help speed up a lot of these fights. And Gino said that they can even be used to make Poes visible again, whether you Z-target them or not. But quite quickly, they will become invisible again. Now this sounds great. It cuts down on the waiting time and allows me to strike right away. So I went to the graveyard of Kakariko village and messed with some tombstones to find a Poe. As you can see, one appeared because I disturbed its grave, and it immediately went invisible. So I started throwing Deku nuts to see if it would do anything. But the answer is no. Nothing happened as far as I can see. It only affected the Poe when it was visible. It actually did the exact opposite of what Gino said. So yeah, this claim is clearly false. Number 15. Ah, the Gerudo Desert. Beautiful, isn't it?
I don't like sand. It's coarse, rough, and irritating, and it gets everywhere.
Anyway, we are not here for sightseeing. We are actually here to test a big claim that I didn't believe at all. Because Wicked had another myth. He said that if you play the Song of Storms next to this empty pond that is found just outside of the Spirit Temple, it will fill up due to the rain and fairies will pop out. Now this sounded too good to be true, which made me skeptical. But it also sounded like a classic Ocarina of Time secret, which made me hopeful. So yeah, at that point, I had to try it. Luckily enough, getting there is quite easy with a warp song. Now when I arrived, I just stood next to the pond and played the Song of Storms to see if Wicked was right. And at first, it didn't work. I played the song and nothing happened. But then during the editing process, my editor did some more research and found out that it can actually be done. But by the looks of it, it is only possible once. And someone already did this in the save file that I used, so I couldn't do it again. However, it can be done. Number 14. The Sheikah stones. They stare at you no matter where you are, always looking, and in the end, we have no idea why. They are odd to say the least, and in these videos we have already experimented a bit with them because they are clearly magical and weird. And today we will once again try something to see how they will react. Because Matt said that you can flatten them using the Megaton hammer, but this doesn't make much sense. It is made of stone, so it should break and not flatten, even though it has a weird wobble when you hit it. So I gave it a shot. Now after finding one and giving it a good smack, I could see that it did flatten. And after some time, it sprung back up again. So by the looks of it, this thing is not made of stone. It behaves more like rubber. It is unlike anything else in the game. But all of this at least shows that Matt was right. Number 13. In the first video, we looked into multiple secrets and strange ways to summon fairies, and most of them actually worked. But after that video, Thomas made a claim in the comment section that you can farm fairies almost anywhere. According to him, there are unexpected locations where Navi will fly to and turn green, indicating that you can play a song here such as Zelda's Lullaby, Epona song, or the Song of Storms for a fairy. Now, I had heard of this before, but never really used this information in one of my playthroughs. So I had no idea where I had to go in order to test this. So I did some research first, and I found out that if you play the Sun Song here in Gerudo's Fortress, a fairy should spawn in. And yeah, as you can see, this worked. This could be super useful if you know about it. So I think the next time I play through Ocarina of Time, I will take advantage of this. Number 12. Sometimes developers make a mistake and forget about something, and usually this is not a big deal. And of course, things like this can also be found in Ocarina of Time, with a quite famous one being seen in Gerudo Fortress. Mud said if you manage to get to Gerudo Valley as a child, which requires either glitches or cheats, you can find a heart piece that is normally unobtainable. And when I was there to test some other myths, I decided to check this out as well. And yeah, an extra heart piece can be found here, which is very odd because I already had 20 hearts. And now I just have an extra heart piece which does nothing for me. So the claim is true, but why is it here? Well, as you can imagine, many people online started theorizing why it can be found here. And many of them think you were supposed to go here as a child, but due to time constraints, it was scrapped. However, in the end, we have no idea why it is here. But it is clear that at some point you were supposed to come here as a child, because it's only seen here as a child. But in the end, Nintendo changed course, and so only adult Link ends up going to Gerudo Fortress. Meanwhile, Child Link only comes into play once you finally arrive at the Spirit Temple. Number 11. During the final battle with the literal incarnation of evil, you are disarmed, and so you are forced to fall back on the items in your inventory. Now, most people will use the Big Goron sword or the Megaton hammer, but what about the Hookshot? An item that isn't known for its offensive capabilities. Well, according to Tyrant, you can actually use it in a fight, because it stuns Ganon if you shoot him in the face. Now, this is something I had never heard of, so I went to Ganon's castle, played a bit of tennis, which was surprisingly difficult due to the crazy input lag, and escaped so I could face his beast form. As soon as the fight started, I whipped out my hookshot and shot him right between the eyes, which did affect him. He shook his head and did nothing for a hot second, but after that, he started swinging his sword again. However, if you're fast enough, you can even prevent him from attacking. So as you can see, it does work, but it isn't the most effective option out there. Aside from that, I also found out you can attack his tail with the hookshot. And combining this with the stun was actually pretty effective, although I bet it would take ages to defeat him this way. Number 10. And we are back in the desert. Really, this whole episode is filled with Gerudo desert myths and claims. It's crazy. Now this time we are here to test a simple one. Zoran said that the hover boots will allow you to walk on the quicksand without sinking and eventually disappearing into it. Now me and Birdkeeper Toby, who I was calling with while recording this, had completely forgotten about the quicksand that is seen almost everywhere in the desert. I mean, it isn't a huge threat after all. But aside from that, I still had to test this myth. So I went to the Haunted Wasteland to see if it would work. First, I stood there with my normal boots on, and as you can see, I started to go down slowly. So I put on the hover boots to see if it would prevent me from sinking lower. I instantly popped back up and didn't sink into the sand, which made moving around a lot easier and faster as well. Clearly, the claim is true, and it's also super useful. Number 9. Gear like swords, shields, and other things breaking is completely normal nowadays in the Legend of Zelda games. And while many hate it, I get why it was introduced with the open world of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. But it isn't actually new. We have seen it before. For example, in Ocarina of Time and Twilight Princess, your shield will break if it catches fire. Really, it is quite hard to keep the Ordon shield throughout the game. But Neko said that the Hylian shield can also break. Now, when I read this, I had my doubts. It's made out of real deal steel. Sure, the Kokiri shield is gone in a matter of seconds when fire is introduced, but the Hylian shield? Nah. But still, I tried to break this thing, and this Beamos was the perfect stress test. So I blocked all of its laser shots with my shield for 5 minutes straight. And you gotta remember, this shield has taken damage before as well. But even after this torture test, it was fine, which I already expected. So sorry, Neko, this just isn't true. Nothing can beat the Hylian shield. Well, in Ocarina of Time at least. Number 8. I do not care for achievements, collectibles, and other stuff like that. Really, no matter the game. But some folks live for that stuff. They will try to get their hands on everything and anything, even if it's just cosmetic or a number on the screen. And of course, collectibles are also seen in Ocarina of Time, with the gold skulltulas being the best example. And the rewards are also pretty good. And Lady Luthine told me that there's a secret way of creating an infinite amount of gold skulltulas out of thin air. First, you have to go to the grotto outside of Hyrule Castle and go inside of it. Here, you stand close to the war portal, kill the spider, grab the token with the boomerang, and immediately backflip out. If you do this correctly, the game will add the token to the counter, but when you re-enter the grotto, the gold skulltula is still there. So you can do this forever until you have 100, which is much easier than collecting them all. Now, the file I used for testing has completed everything, so I couldn't easily test this. So So I started looking online to see if this is true. And yes, it is. My good friends over at Zelda Universe even uploaded a guide for this 11 years ago. So this trick is also really old. Now, if you still need to farm those pesky spiders, then give this a shot, because it's super effective. Number 7. This is a Cuco.
Dear God.
There's more.
No.
A harmless animal until you start to mess with it. And so far, we've already experimented a bit with them in this video. And while there are ways to escape their wrath, for example by using Epona, can specific items help as well? Maybe. Slayflay suggested that Nayru's love might do the job. This spell surrounds Link's body with a blue diamond-shaped barrier, which lasts exactly for 1 minute. And its effect is simple. It prevents you from taking damage no matter what attacks you, but it does not stop recoil from enemy attacks. So what happens if you use this when the Cucos attack you? Well, as you can see right here, you don't take any damage. And this was great for a while, because at some point the effects wear off, but the Cucos aren't done yet. So sure, it allows you to maybe escape, but aside from that, it does very little for you, because these feathered demons will still come for you. Number 6. If you've ever played Ocarina of Time, then you know that the Gerudo Desert section of the game is a bit odd. You can't enter as a kid, only once you're an adult. But as soon as you arrive at the Spirit Temple, you notice you have to be a kid again. So it's a confusing back and forth which Nintendo probably tinkered with a lot. That's also why a secret extra heart piece can be found there. But apparently more can be found here, because the odd mushroom, which is part of a long side quest, is also here for some reason. Well, according to Blue Shell Incident at least. So I went there once again, and using cheats, I got to the Gerudo Fortress and looked around for this thing. Now I ended up finding the chest that it's in, but for some reason, it was already opened. But normally, it can be found right here. So the claim is true, but for some reason, someone opened this chest before uploading the save file so people like me could use it for testing. Which is a bit weird, but that doesn't matter. Number 5. Now this next claim is kind of crazy, because it could finally solve a problem that I have been dealing with for ages. I really despise the Keese enemy that is found in all the dungeons and caves seen in the game. They will fly at you as soon as they see you, and man oh man, I hate these so much, because dealing with them is just hell. But apparently there's a way to avoid dealing with them, because this commenter said that Keese won't bother you if you have the skull mask on. Now this sounded too good to be true, so I had my doubts, but I was hopeful. Because again, I would give anything to get rid of these pesky bats. So I went to the Dongo's cavern and confronted these 3 Keese with the mask on as well as off to see if there would be any difference. And the answer is yes. They do swarm around, but won't fly towards you to attack. So yeah, they leave you alone. But as soon as I take the mask off, they go nuts again. So the claim is true, and I will certainly remember it. Number 4. Sometimes the developers of video games forget about certain things they were supposed to get rid of. I mean, the Gerudo Desert is a perfect example of this. But apparently something can also be found at Ganon's castle, because some folks said that the side of the castle can be grabbed onto with the Hookshot, allowing you to clip into it. Which sounded kind of crazy, but hey, it was quite easy to test, so I tried to do it. And yeah, you can actually clip into the castle this way. For some reason, this stuff can be grabbed onto with the Hookshot, which makes no sense at all, and must have been a mistake. Sadly enough, it isn't really useful. The whole inside of the castle is not rendered, so you will just fall into the lava below if you walk forward. Number 3. Now many minigames seen in Ocarina of Time require skill to win. You gotta be good with a bow or need good timing. But there's one that becomes incredibly easy as soon as you have a certain item. I'm talking about the chest minigame, which is child's play as soon as you have the Lens of Truth. Because with it, you can see exactly what's inside of it. However, I saw that Duke claimed that you can never win this game without the Lens of Truth, because it's rigged. But then I saw others say that this was false. And while it is hard, you can actually win the game if you're lucky. Now at that point, I had to test this one. I mean, this discussion can't go on forever. We need an answer. So I went there and attempted to win. And while I never managed to finish, I saw online that others were able to pull it off. For example, YouTuber Long Plays of Evil managed to do it, but it did take him 28 attempts. However, this does show that it is possible. Number 2. We have been bullying Cucos for a while now, but during all of this chicken-related testing, I thought to myself, do they ever stop? I mean, I saw some people in the comments claim that they will stop at some point, it just takes a while. Now, I didn't believe this. As far as I could remember, they go on forever until you enter a new area or a building. So I just attacked one of them, triggering their murder reflex, and at that point, I just waited. Now, I did die, but I came back due to a fairy, and then I died again. All of this took more than 8 minutes, and as far as I can see, they will never stop. So yeah, Cucos won't ever calm down, even though that is a thing in later titles. Number 1. Originally, I was gonna look at a myth involving Twin Rova, but sadly enough, I couldn't get my hands on a save file that hadn't defeated them yet, but was still close to the Spirit Temple. Because I mean, if I had to completely replay these games each time I wanted to do a myth-busting video, it would take 3 times as long to release these videos. But when I was looking for a new myth to cover, I came up with an idea. During the Twin Rova fight, you can deflect their attacks. But can you do this with other attacks as well? Who knows? So I tried to deflect the laser of a Beamos when I was there to torture test the Hylian shield. However, the mirror shield did nothing at all, even though it can deflect these fire and ice beams, which doesn't make much sense to me, and I'm a bit sad that this isn't possible, because it could have been a cool move. But hey, what can you do about it? Now those were all the myths we had for this video, but be sure to leave your ideas for future videos below, especially for other Zelda titles as well as Super Mario, because after doing 2 videos on Ocarina of Time and 2 videos on Majora's Mask, I want to move on for a bit. We could do one on Twilight Princess or Super Mario Galaxy. Let me know in the comments what you think. Aside from that, leave a like and be sure to subscribe so you won't miss any future videos.